Oh, we're already laughing. Perfect. Welcome to Golden Hour Adventures. Today's guest is Torv. Did I say that right?
Yep, Torv, Torv.
Perfect. We'll have to get into the conversation how you got that name.
Oh, it's my last name. That's a short story.
Oh, perfect. That's even easier.
Yeah.
It's not your full last name though, right? Like
No, my last name is Torvinen.
Yeah, I was going to say you have a super long one that like I was having trouble pronouncing, so I was like, "Oh, Torv, that sounds perfect."
Well, I mean, actually, I guess that is kind of part of like the whole thing is my name is Eric, and back in my wild man days, I like did not think that Eric was a badass enough name to like go with the lifestyle, so I just started going by Torv, you know. And a lot of people thought that was my name. Like, that guy's crazy. And it's like perfect that that's his name. And then you find out like his real name is Eric.
Just doesn't fit the lifestyle.
I know, like, I can see why he doesn't go by that. But now, I go by Torv here and there, or Eric at work, But the part of my alter ego, I used to say Eric likes to read books about Nepal and do push-ups at sunrise, and Torv likes to slam whiskey and yell at women.
That's funny.
Perfect. I like that. Well, it's fitting that we're going to be calling you Torv during the podcast.
Well, Torv is dead, but I still like to use the name sometimes.
Oh yeah, this is the new chapter in life, Torv.
Right.
Well, you did White Mountain on a splitboard, correct?
I did. Yep, I did the White Mountains 100 on my snowboard. I'm the world's greatest cross-country snowboarder.
How did you get in?
As arrogantly as possible.
How'd you get into snowboarding?
I got into snowboarding. I mean, I did it here. I grew up in Duluth, Minnesota, where I live now. And I did it, like, because a lot of kids do it, But I was pretty terrible at it. And it really didn't have a huge appeal to me. It's icy. It's cold. I was, like, pretty cautious, So, like, I don't know. I didn't want to get hurt. So I did it, but not a whole lot, and I wasn't very good at it. But I owned a snowboard. I had boots. I had stuff like that, And then I went to college in Montana, in Bozeman. And I somehow ended up rooming with this dude, shout out to Hefe. And he's still, I don't know if he has a job. He still snowboards. Like, last time I saw him, I ran into him in Valdez. Like, he was staying in like a bus and just out snowboarding. And that dude became my roommate. And he saw that I had a snowboard, and he's like, "Oh, cool, you're a snowboarder." And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess." And then that was it. And we snowboarded together like all through college. And I ended up just kind of really embracing the lifestyle. I became a lifty. I stayed in Big Sky for a couple years after college, just doing the ski bum thing. I went up to Alaska. I worked at Skiland for a winter as a lifty. And kind of just, everyone needs like something, like some sort of identity, something that keeps them busy, keeps them outside, something to draw to. And that's just kind of what I picked at that point in my life. It worked,
Is there ski resorts in Minnesota?
Oh, sure. But they're pretty flat. I've tried to get back excited about it since I moved back here, 5 years ago. And I'll go here and there a couple times a year, but it is tough after like riding Valdez and doing all the avalanche courses and all that stuff, and living in Big Sky for I don't know how many years I lived there, and then learning how to ride backcountry and all that stuff, and then coming back here and just like cruising groomers by myself because I'm like almost 40. I'm not like part of the scene. I'm just the old guy cruising groomers, and my knees hurt.
I've noticed going out there, like, because I snowboard as well, that nobody snowboards anymore. It's like skiing is the big thing now.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why.
It's funny. I grew up skiing.
You did. Where did you learn how to ski, Robbie?
In Utah.
Oh, cool.
My uncle was a ski patrolman for Solitude ski area. And when he would have to go do avalanche control, he would take me and my cousin up there and direct us over to the ski rental. Then we'd get our skis, skiing in Levi's and whatever parka we had. Then,
Nice.
he would send us down to one of his buddies at ski school, so we'd just jump into ski school. Then after we, got good enough not to go with ski school anymore, we just kept going. Then my parents worked at Snowbird for 10 years. And so I got a season pass. So anytime I could get on the mountain, I was skiing when I was a kid.
Dude, you grew up right in the scene. That's awesome. I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, I tried snowboarding because I was always a skateboarder, but I hated cutting across the mountain.
Traversing
Yeah,
traversing is terrible.
and with skis, you can kind of you got two of them, so you can kind of. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I tried to learn how to ski, and I was like 32, and I tried. Like, you just don't pick stuff up easy when you're 32. So I was on rental skis from like the University of Alaska in Fairbanks. There, I'd rent skis and tried to learn how to ski. Almost always, like out on the glacier, on Castner Glacier and stuff, with a huge backpack on. It just didn't click, So I bought a split board because then I could go out and traverse stuff and go on these trips and stuff in the backcountry without. Before, I just do it on snowshoes carry my snowboard.
So you got a split board and started doing backcountry stuff. What was that transition like, going from snowboarding to split boarding?
Well, that was awesome, man. That was right up my alley because I had the snowboard background. I was not by any means like a expert, talented snowboarder, but I could do it. I did it a lot, and then I love fitness stuff, hence the White Mountains 100, still love fitness stuff. I spent all day today judging a CrossFit competition. Since 3:00 this morning, I've been up.
Oh, nice.
Prepping for it and stuff, and just love it, So then you mix those two things together. You got like the mountains, the views, the community that comes with that, the backcountry community. It's how I kind of, met a lot of my friends up there in Alaska. Snowboarding, which when I got to Fairbanks, where most people aren't very good snowboarders, I was like good at that. And then the fitness side of things. It all just kind of meshed, and I really liked it. For the most part, I would say the avalanche potential was something I never really got super comfortable with, but I did my Avi 1. I got competent enough to tell, red light, green light. But I never did it enough to get fully competent at avalanche assessment, but I could make inferences.
I started backcountry skiing when I was living in Colorado. I mean, Colorado's got great resorts, but growing up in Utah, it's a little different scene. But the drive to get there, how much it costs to go to those resorts, I was like, and I was trail running at the time, so I was like, well, I can just switch over and get on a pair of uphill skis and go do the same thing I was doing in the summer. And I'm right there with you. Like, going out alone when there's avalanche concerns puts a little scare in you. And so a lot of the times, if I was just going for a workout, I'd just a basin you could skin up before the lifts opened, and I would just go up and do that and ski down the groomer. Or if there was any powder, go in the backcountry a little bit. But I had some friends that we'd go out with, and moving on your feet through the mountains is so much quicker than on, I'm sure, a split board or a pair of skis. We'd be out there for 12, 14 hours and maybe cover 7 miles of up. We only counted our up really because the down was so quick. In the places you just get to see in the middle of the winter, walking up those hills with your skins on and your big backpack with all of your avalanche gear and listening for shit. Oh, it's so much fun. I miss it.
It's amazing, dude. I mean, it's something that like most people don't get to do, or if they do, it's like maybe not often, a once in a lifetime thing. And living in Colorado, Utah, Alaska, you're just like going out for a tour this weekend, up into the mountains, gonna go check out a glacier cave or whatever, and yeah, I really loved that for sure.
Did you ever have any run-ins with avalanches?
I did not, man. I was pretty cautious about it. Yeah, nope. I don't have any great backcountry accident stories, or for the
That's
most part,
probably a good thing.
things went pretty well. I in certain things, like at my job and stuff, I have a pretty high risk tolerance. I'm a fish biologist, so I spend a lot of time on lakes and rivers and running around in old boats in the middle of the night and stuff, catching spawning fish. Pretty high risk tolerance for that, but for some reason, like rock climbing and mountaineering, my risk tolerance stayed low. So I've never had an accident or incident doing those things. I guess I just got high spidey sense, where I start getting nervous. I get nervous before it gets dangerous, and then I start not having fun, and I do it to have fun.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, when that slope angle, and depending on the conditions, you're just like, oh, that's a little too steep for me today.
Yep.
We'll just stick it over here on the mellow stuff.
And for people like us that like exercising, you're like, that's fine. I'll get a good workout in. I'll be out here. That's great. I might not get to go ride that wonderful gnarly slope, but I'm too nervous about it releasing anyways,
I've noticed that with different communities. When people are out peak bagging, their goal is to hit the summit. And one thing that trail running's given me, it's not always about the summit, it's about the adventure and the journey. And I carried that with my backcountry skiing too, where I was just out there enjoying the time being out in the mountains in the winter. But it's very interesting when people you're with or you see on the trail and they're trying to go bag something or do something and the conditions aren't right, and you're just like, just go have fun. We're out here to have fun. Like, don't put your life in danger to get to the top of that peak. You'll be there next time. And I think a lot of times people forget we'll never be Mother Nature. Like, our odds are stacked all the time. We're never gonna win that battle.
I mean, some people just have the summit fever that I don't totally understand. I guess I have it for other things that I really want to do certain things, but summit fever is generally not something I experience. I like to be out there, but I could be 3/4 up the side of the mountain and be pretty damn happy. Maybe not as happy as if I'm on top, but 3/4 up and I'm pretty happy and safe. So
yeah, always just look at it. Oh, I guess I got to come back.
Right.
I've been on 14ers in Colorado, and being a trail runner, we don't go by the 2 to 3 a.m. start on the trail. We're the ones getting there about 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. And we know the storms are going to come in around the afternoon. Been out there enough, but there's been times where people just get mad, and I'm like, who cares? We'll come back next weekend. Just enjoy yourself. So what if it rains on us? We'll get back down in the trees before the lightning hits.
Right.
So you did White Mountain 100 on a split board. Oh, I want to hear about that.
Dude, that's a whole story. So before I can even tell you about the race, I'm pulling up my computer here. I made some notes so I don't forget too much, but because it's a long story. It starts
Perfect.
like 10 years ago. So I lived in Fairbanks, and I had this split board. I had no money because I was a grad student or I was a seasonal fisheries technician or whatever. I never had any money, but I swiped my credit card down there at Beaver Sports and got like this badass split board, right? And so I didn't have cross country skis, so I would just go out on the trails on my split board, which is like the least efficient way to travel, but you get to wear warm, comfortable boots. So I did a fair bit of that just for workouts, just to be outside. And one of the trails I like to train on was the White Mountains Trail. It's one of my favorite trails. It's beautiful. It's unique. It's got the cabin system. But like to skip a few steps in the whole story so that we don't talk for hours, is when I lived in Fairbanks, I was pretty wrapped up in substance abuse, had a pretty bad drinking problem. And I always wanted to do the White Mountains 100 on my splitboard. I talked about it all the time. But I couldn't, there was a lot of goals I had in Fairbanks that were derailed by alcohol. Like I was a pretty fit dude, did a lot of kind of ultra marathon stuff on the side, a lot of training for them. I would get ready for a ultra marathon, train a lot, and then just go on a bender and ruin it all. Spend every penny I have, and I mean, training be damned. It takes, at that point, it would take the 3 or 4 days of being drunk, and then 3 or 4 days of being hungover, and then 10 days though where your life is kind of derailed. And so I was never able to get a good training block together, have the $200 to do the White Mountains 100. And so I guess to step back one more time is I actually remember my first time going out on the White Mountains Trail and being violently hungover. I was with my training partner, Nick. It's he picked me up at 5 a.m. And I would let him go on ahead so that I could puke a little bit. Nick's never had a beer in his entire life. So kind of a different type of, I don't know how we became training partners, but we did. And probably because we were willing to do silly things like go splitboard in the White Mountains 100. But so I remember my first time out there and just sweating and shaking and puking but still talking yeah, I'm gonna splitboard the White Mountains 100. That was in 2014 or something like that. I talked about it a lot for someone that really couldn't get their shit together. What do they call it? Spraying, where you just talk about what you're gonna do all the time at the bar, but everyone probably left that dude. He's at the bar all the time, man. He's not doing anything. He's not gonna splitboard the White Mountains 100. He'll be lucky to make it home tonight. And so that went on for years, multiple years, where I was always on the edge of being super fit, always on the edge of being able to pull some of these wild adventures off that I wanted to do, occasionally doing something cool, just enough to keep my shred cred. But for the most part, I was spending a lot of my time at the pub and my money and my energy and all that stuff. So then I moved back to Minnesota to be with my family and to get sober. And I do. And I get sober. And the first winter I'm here, I don't have a whole lot to do. I did intensive outpatient, where it's 6 months where you go to a place and you sit with people for 5 hours during the day. And so I just worked part-time and I did that. I didn't really have any money, but Duluth, kind of like Fairbanks, has cross-country ski trails all over it. And it's flat, pretty pancake flat, really. And so I splitboarded all over the place. The Birkebeiner Trail. I wish I would have had a GPS watch or knew what Strava was at the time. Because it's all I did. Because I had a car and I had a splitboard and I all of a sudden had all this energy and it's free. I don't even think I bought the trail pass. It's $25, but I don't have $25. They're not going to pull me over, And so I just poached ski trails all winter long. And I got stopped a lot by people in Duluth don't even know what a splitboard is. And they're like, yo, what's that thing? What are you doing out here? Just cruising horizontal groomers, shredding corduroy slowly with skins on. And so, but I finally was able to, I had it together to get into the White Mountains at that time. I was fit, sober. I wasn't broke. I could buy a plane ticket. I was actually really fit because my job, I worked at the airport loading suitcases. And then I'd go to the CrossFit gym and then I'd ski all night. So, it's all I did. And I got the lottery spot in the White Mountains 100. I was fit. I was all set to go. And then COVID happened.
Oh.
So, I mean, the week, 2 weeks before it got canceled, So that would have been like 8 years of planning it, and that was as close as I got. That was what 3-4 years ago, and so like, I was pretty bummed because did they cancel it for 2 years? I can't remember,
I'm not sure.
but either way, I didn't get to do it. And during that time of not being able to do it, I broke my hip. So that we'll just keep that story short. I was born with a broken hip, but it started to act up real bad and it swelled up, and I had to have a hip replacement. That took 2 more years to deal with that. I did the cortisone shot thing. 2 years where I couldn't really do a whole lot, much less split board 100 miles. But I still talked about it a lot. Like, so now like at first I can't do it because of alcoholism. And then I can't do it because of COVID. Then I can't do it because I broke my damn hip and had to have a hip replacement. And so then this winter, I got into the White Mountains 100 again. I have a good job and I'm in good shape. So we were finally able to, make it happen. Of course, it didn't snow at all down here in Minnesota. And I did most of my training on a man-made snow loop that was a half a mile. And I would just ski in circles a half a mile, like all night long. Like, but now I'd pay for my ski pass sometimes.
What was your biggest training for that on the half-mile loop?
I mean, close to 30 miles.
Oh my God.
I'd do it all night. I'd stash Red Bulls, like and like chili along the route. Well, the route. And I'd ski in circles all night long. And that's the only way I could think of to train, So I did most of my training. I actually was undertrained for this race, and I just kind of was drawing on 20 years fitness experience, because no matter how much you do that, you cannot get enough mileage in. I mean, there was a few weeks where there was enough snow around where I could go do a long trail or something, but for the most part, I was skiing in a half-mile loop on man-made snow.
That's funny.
With like all the cross-country ski teams and stuff, and they got all their spandex on, and I'm out there just like cruising on my split board with like a backpack full of chili and Red Bull. I think it's funny, but I think a lot of them thought it was weird and like kind of creepy.
Oh gosh. Like, oh, the weirdo's back with his chili.
He didn't pay for a ski pass, but I'm not going to talk to him. Like, if you look creepy enough, like the lifties and the ticket checkers, they don't want to deal with you.
That's funny.
They're like, he was here when we showed up and he's still here when we're leaving.
Yeah, he's sleeping in his car right now. So yeah, things finally came together, and yeah, I was able to do it this year. So I mean, race recap is actually pretty uneventful compared to getting to the damn starting line. Took 10 years, and then me and my little brother flew up with me, and I met Nick, my training partner, and he did it as well this year. He's done it a bunch of times, and we were able to make it happen. And I know you guys did a recap already, so you know that it was like pretty warm. The trail was in relatively good condition, got a little soft, but if there is any year to go do it when you're a little undertrained, I was a little underprepared. I just was kind of busy with work and stressed out, and I just threw a bunch of shit in my backpack, and I'm like, well, I don't really feel prepared, but I have done a lot of this before in my life, so I'm just going to go do it. I had to do a qualifier down here on foot because there wasn't enough snow to ski it. So after not running for years, I ran 40 miles in January with a heavy backpack on, because it was one of those races where you have to carry a sleeping bag and a stove and 36 ounces of water and all this stuff. And yeah, so my knees still actually hurt from that. If you don't run for years and you go out and just send it on a 40-mile race, it'll beat you up. So
What
I did
race
that
was
qualifier down here, and
what race was that 40-miler?
that was the St. Croix 40 down here in kind of central Minnesota.
I randomly have a buff from that race. I don't know why. I have no idea. I think I found it on a trail and I took
I
it
was gonna say,
back.
it's
And
probably mine, you bastard.
no, I've had it for a long time. I've had it for a while. I think I found it at a race somewhere, and I meant to like take it back to the aid station and like drop it off for anybody that lost it, and then I ended up keeping it somehow. So
Well, now you can't have the merch without doing the race. You have to come down.
I guess so. Yeah, I'll have to be down there one of these days.
It's pretty
I've
flat.
actually used it too because it's a smaller buff, so it's nice. I just like when it's hot out, I wrap it around my wrist, and that's I keep my wrist cool with it. So
Perfect.
I use it all the time.
Blasphemy. Dude, I was wearing this hat, my White Mountains 100 hat, during the race. Like, they
I
gave it to
know.
us.
I saw you, and I was talking crap the whole time. I'm like, who is this dude like flexing on everybody wearing the hat?
I got the finisher hat on at the start, walking around with my snowboard. I was in last place. Dead last. So, I mean, that's how the race went for me. I just could not figure out the
You're
glide.
back there with the runners.
I was in dead last for quite a while until, so I did not plan to do this at all, but I just kind of started laughing, and I'm like, man, I'm in last place. What the hell do I got to lose? So I stripped the skins off and put it in snowboard mode and started like snowboarding like I'd hit a downhill and snowboard, and I'd just double pull as long as I could keep the momentum up, or as long as my shoulders had strength, and then that would end. So I'd have to put it back in split mode and put the skins back on, and I'd skin along. And on one of those, I was coming into Lee's cabin, and I went down this big hill and across this flat spot. So I decided not to go back into skin mode. So I'm just pulling and pulling and pulling on my snowboard, and I come across the group that is at Lee's cabin, and they were some of my old like adventure buddies from when I lived in Fairbanks. I knew them, and they knew about like my desire to do this adventure and about my drinking problem back then, and then I'd gotten sober. And all of a sudden I come around the corner on a snowboard, and they're like, dude, no way, it's Torv. And he's freaking snowboarding down the trail for 100 miles, because they knew I was going to do it, but they had no clue I was going to. They thought I was doing like the whole damn thing, double pulling on a snowboard.
You'd have some shoulders and lats for sure.
Oh, it was not a good way to efficiently attack this race. Like, stop for like pull until you can't do it anymore, and then you'd have to stop for like 20 minutes to put it back together, and then take off again,
Yeah, I remember at one point I'm running down this hill, and it's a pretty steep hill. It's about mile 30, right before we get on the river, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you come. I don't even hear you, but I just see you just fly by me, and you're just laughing, and I'm like, "There goes Torv."
Yeah, dude. I was so amused because I did not expect to be able to snowboard at all, because it's just not a good way to do that,
Mhm.
But once I couldn't get my glide, I was having like my heart rate kept spiking up. Like, I think we were all a little dehydrated because we didn't expect it to be 40 degrees. I think that was causing, I don't know, my physiology, or maybe it was my being undertrained. I was kind of struggling more than I expected. So I was like, like, fuck it. I'm going snowboarding.
How did the divide? How did you going down the divide? Did you snowboard all the way in? I mean, because that's a long downhill.
I did not. Your skins can only go on and off so many times during the night. They lose sticky every time. That was a little icy, if I remember.
Yeah.
And dark. So I stayed in ski mode with my skins on, so I could kind of. I actually have way more control in snowboard mode, but I couldn't see, so I decided just to. Also, I struggled going up the divide really hard. My pace dropped off significantly there, and then stayed low. So I got to the top. It was cold. I think at that point I lost my jacket on the trail, so I'm in like my long johns.
Yeah, I saw your jacket. I was like, we didn't pick it up because we just left it there because we knew the snow machiners were coming through, and we're like, we're already carrying 25 pounds. I'm not picking up a jacket too. Like, get out of here. But the snow machiners were going back and forth. Plus, I didn't know, like, was somebody coming back? I don't know what the story was. I didn't grab it. I totally saw it.
I wasn't surprised. You have good reason not to grab it, but I thought that was kind of funny. Like I ran into one dude. I'm like, "Yo, did you by any chance see like my jacket back there?" He's like, "Yeah, I saw it." He's like, "Left it there though." I'm like,
we just thought for sure, like the snow machiners are going back and forth. Like they'll see it, they'll pick it up.
Like I ran into him, like, "You guys see that jacket?" And they're like, "Yeah, I was hanging in a tree." I'm like, I'm freezing because it did get down to like 5 or 10 below in the low spots.
Yeah, it did.
And I had like long johns and like a Houdini shell on, and my long johns had a lot of holes in them. So I was pretty cold.
Was there any other split borders?
The was tough. What's that?
Was there any other split borders on the course? Or were you the only one?
No, man. I don't think anyone has.
I think he's the only one in history.
I don't think anyone has ever split boarded a major winter ultra. Like, when I was joking before, I said I'm the world's greatest cross country snowboarder. Like, I think that's true. Like to say as arrogant as a human can, I'm like, I don't think anyone else is doing it. You know, I don't know why I'm doing it sometimes. You know, like this. If I would have put on a pair of skis and expended the same effort, I would have finished hours and hours ahead of where I finished because my split board weighs 3 to 4 times as much as a pair of skis, you know, and has significantly more friction. And
what was your finish time?
You know, I don't really even know. It was like 32 hours, 33 hours.
Oh, okay. So you were right there with me then.
Yeah, I was right with the runners. I would cross paths with your group at the aid station. Like I'd leave a little bit ahead of you. I probably made up some time because it ends on a slight downhill.
Yeah.
You know? So like the last few miles, I was able to cruise. You know.
Okay.
But we were pretty much together most of the time.
Yeah, because I think I was around 33 something.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was 32,
yeah,
30.
You were right there then.
Yep. Yeah, I know it took me longer than I anticipated because I had friends waiting for me, and I figured 28 to 30 hours. But the way I felt like I was doing intervals, my heart rate would just spike, and I'd be like, I got to slow down, you know. And I'm still not sure what caused that, but who knows, you know.
Being out there for 30 hours.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that could, but like I was going so slow, you can usually maintain a pretty low heart rate, you know, when you're going 2.5 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So it took me longer than I hoped, which is fine. There was no competitiveness about doing this project, the cross country splitboard snowboard project, but I just didn't really want to be out there for 32.5 hours. I was like,
yeah,
the difference between being out there for 28 hours and 32 doesn't seem like much until you're ready to be done by 32 hours, you know. So and I had friends waiting for me at the end. So they sat there for like 5 hours.
It's an ultra.
That's the way it is. Like, hey, you guys want to crew my race? Like, I'll see you anywhere from 28 to 35 hours or something like that.
Yep. That's how it goes. So your longest training session was 30 miles, then you did 100 miles on a split board. Yeah.
But, you know, I've done the White Mountains Loop before, actually, and stayed in the cabins and stuff like that. And, I mean, it was 4 years ago, but I trained so much 4 years ago, I kind of had the experience. I mean, that fitness had gone away, but I don't know. I guess I've been doing endurance stuff a very long time, and I just kind of figured, like, I can do this. You know, it's going to hurt, and I'm going to be slow. I wish I had more time and more snow to train on, but I just kind of had the feeling that it would work, you know.
That's the beauty with longer distance, you know, whatever it is. Once you get that experience, it gets much easier to handle the highs and the lows. You know, these people that just want to go to 100 and maybe done a couple of 30 milers or 50 milers and jump right into the 100. It's a different beast all that time out there on your feet. Being a split board, skis, bike, it doesn't matter, you know. Bike you can go a little faster, but just experience. That's all I gotta say is experience. once you
You
get
just
that
kind of, you
experience?
learn how to deal with the stuff, I don't know, stomach aches and being cold and bored. Like you're in this beautiful place where people would pay $1 billion to go hang out. And you're like, man, I'm bored. You know, like wish I had a podcast to listen to or something. But you go through all of those emotions during it, and you just kind of deal with it. And if you've done it before, with my job, I did field work all over the North Slope during the summer times for quite a while. And that job was physically difficult and mentally difficult because I just go sleep in a tent for 3 months and you'd be wet and cold and tired and hungry for months. And that's what ultra is, only for one day. Add in, my experience with battling hangovers, and I know all about feeling like shit.
Well, let's segue into your sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
So you wanted to split board, White Mountain, sobriety kind of got in the way. Then you got sober. What was that? Was it 10 years you said? 10 years in the making?
Yeah, probably. From when I first heard about the White Mountains 100 and wanted to do it, and then thought it would be badass to do it on my split board and be the first person to do that, and then actually doing it. Yeah, it's probably about 10 years.
Okay. So, also, you just hit a huge milestone in your sobriety, 5 years.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute now. It's just kind of it's sort of become like my life, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't have the cravings anymore, or I'm still diligent, I guess, and I still do the things I'm supposed to do and check in with myself to make sure I'm not making bad decisions that could make that be risky. But for the most part, it's just sort of I live that life, I guess. It's an awesome way to live, and I love it, and I outspoken about it. Yeah, so it's been 5 years, and I've been living this way for 5 years. And as the first year is kind of weird, but after that, I just kind of settled into this nice way of doing things.
What was the moment when you decided that you had a problem and you needed to change your lifestyle?
Oh man, like maybe when I was locked in a psych ward, got a DUI, spent a couple nights in jail. You name it, man. That story can get as gnarly as you have time for. Like there was no rock bottom moment. That rock bottom was a moving target for me. Like I could dig deeper. I remember when I was in the psych ward, and my parents picked me up, and they're like, "Well, I guess here's your rock bottom," and I'm like, "Haha, watch this!" Like, what finally got me sober is I had a job as a biologist in Alaska, and I was likely going to get fired. And I think like this was all above board or whatever, but my boss came to me on May 30th or something, my sobriety date, and he was like, "Yo, if you resign on June 1st, you still have health insurance for 28 days. That's how long a treatment center is, you know?" And he kind of hinted to me, he's like, "You might as well do it because you're going to get fired soon with this type of behavior. And that's not going to be good for anything, for anybody." So I don't know what made me do it, because people had suggested treatment before. This is a long time. I knew I had a problem for a long time. There was no hiding it. I was actually pretty open about it. I'd talk to my friends about it. Like, yeah, I am a tried and true genetically pure alcoholic. And I just didn't know what to do about it. And when my boss told me that, and God bless his soul, I just texted him. Actually, I text him every year on my sobriety date, and I'm like, "Dude, just check it in. Thanks. Still sober. You may have saved my life." And yeah, so I resigned on. I sobered up like May 30th, right around in there, and resigned on June 1st at noon because I had to work for 4 hours, and flew down to Minnesota and went to treatment. 5 years ago yesterday.
Man, that's the crazy thing about the recovery world. society and TV and media wants us shows that we all have these big, huge rock bottom moments. But the more I talk with people in recovery, that's not the case. Some people do. Celebrities, of course, they want to make it some big rock bottom moment. But the more and more I talk to people about it, it's just there is no rock bottom for a lot of us. It's just we're sick of the same old shit, or there's stuff that happens and we make the conscious choice to change. And one of my favorite things is, I was an addict for 40 plus years, and now I get to write a new chapter in my life, the sober chapter. And that's something that just keeps me motivated, and I wake up every day and I get to write this new chapter. The old chapter is chapter 1. This is chapter 2. And it's just something that definitely keeps me going.
I like that, man. Thanks for reminding me of that, because I used to use that. So when that first year of sobriety, when like my life was still pretty messy. I had like maxed out credit cards. I lived with my parents. Loaded the suitcases on the airplanes that overnight and stuff. But I also, like I said, like dove really headfirst into fitness, and I started calling myself an athlete, which was kind of cool and like always made me feel a little bit arrogant, but also felt good. Like I can do this now. Like, because in high school, I was playing sports and stuff, and someone asked me like, "So are you like a jock?" And I said, "No, I'm a party animal." Like I remember that, like self-identified as a problematic individual at like 16 years old, and because I couldn't identify as a jock, I was terrible at sports, and so then when I got sober, I'm like, I'm an athlete now. I'm gonna wear my White Mountains 100 hat all over the place and become a CrossFit judge and like do all this other stuff and and identify as an athlete. I want to be known as an athlete, and I was able to do that because you could just start. If a normal person just one day decided to start calling themselves an athlete, it'd be a little weird. But like we get to do that. There's actually a lot of little benefits about that. Rewriting your own chapter.
Yeah. So you hit your 5-year milestone. What was your first year like? A lot of people struggle with their first year.
Yeah. Now I got to try to remember like how to put it into words. Like it's weird. It's strange. I did a lot of recovery stuff. Like I said, I stayed in intensive outpatient. I think like 6 months, maybe 4 months. I can't remember, but I really liked it. But there's also a fair bit of kind of like I didn't feel like an overwhelming sense of shame, but like just like this tinge of like shame. I live with my parents. I got maxed out credit cards. I work a minimum wage job. My dating app profile was like not becoming, like if I actually put it truth, like recovering alcoholic, lives with his parents, works minimum wage job, spends most of his day in intensive outpatient. Like I would take you for coffee, but I don't have any money. Like can't go for drinks, like because that could kill me. But and I did that for a long time, and I'm glad I did. When I talk to people that are maybe new or looking to get sober curious, whatever, I'm like, it's gonna be strange and it's gonna take a lot of effort, but do it. Like when I signed up I got like some money from the county because I didn't have any money, so I signed up for like my health insurance paid for me to go to the 28-day treatment, and then that was over. I didn't have a job, so I went to the county and I got some funding to go to their outpatient program. And I remember signing up and being like, holy shit, 6 months? Like, I'm ready to get my life back on track. And like a lot of us know, no, you're not. It takes more time than that. And I don't know why I did, but I did. And I signed up for 6 months of it and I did it. But that's weird, right? Like, I had a car, so I could usually take myself there, but I'd have to get rides there sometimes from my folks. And that's just I don't know. I guess I kind of loved it in a way because I felt better for the first time in my entire life. But it's not all rosy, right? When you spend your days that way. And you're not thriving. That's for sure.
Seems like it was very humbling.
That's a good way to put it. Yep. Humbling. But at the same time, you feel great, and people are helping you. I needed help.
Yeah.
You know, I had a counselor at inpatient, and then I also had like a social worker to kind of help me get health insurance and stuff eventually. And you know, who wants to be the guy that has to go see a social worker to help him with his paperwork to get his life back together? But at the same time, I knew deep down that I needed that help, and getting it felt good because I knew deep down for years, and I just never followed through. And then following through, I'm like, man, I should have done this years ago. All you got to do is go in this office and tell them you need help, like the county social office, and they'll help you, you know?
The hardest part is
but I
asking
still
for
got
help.
cravings. You know, the first year is not easy, you know? So
When I'm sure in a lot of that outpatient recovery stuff, you talked about your emotions. What did you notice different about your emotions when you became sober?
the thing I noticed most is I didn't really have, the thing that stands out the most is not having coping skills for stress. I don't know if I ever did. That might be more of a long-term thing. I still feel that. So I would get stressed out over things that would not stress out someone who'd been living a functioning adult life in pieces. This is the way I always put it. It's like you graduate college, you kind of become an adult. You know, you do these things little over. I got sober at 34 years old. When I got sober, I was living in like a bunkhouse type situation up on Kodiak Island. I did not really take care of myself at all. And then all of a sudden I'm 34 years old, got sober, and like life just starts happening, and I don't know how to deal with it. You know, I had no clue how to get health insurance. I would not pay my bills for like months and months on end. Not because I didn't have money, it's because I didn't like remember how to buy stamps, you know, or set up auto pay or whatever, you know. And I'd get so stressed out about that stuff. Like, you know, lose sleep over it, over simple adult tasks. That's what stands out to me is, but I didn't have the anger that a lot of people have. I think my emotional sobriety kind of caught on pretty quickly. My other favorite term is emotional incontinence, where, and this still happens, I cry like at the drop of the hat. If we get through this interview without crying, it'll be a miracle. I cry at the drop of a hat. I almost cried judging the contest today, the CrossFit contest, because this one girl was trying so hard, she just couldn't get it. And I'm like, oh, I'm rooting for you. I think that's part of it. I don't know, maybe that's something that goes way back, or maybe that's just some wires I fried in my brain or something, where I will just cry if I see a cute puppy. And then a doctor I brought it up one time, like a routine checkup, and he's like, "Oh, emotional incontinence." I'm like, "That's a hilarious term that I will use in public." Like, I'm emotionally incontinent.
You know, a lot of times people don't realize too is when someone does become sober that we've lived that way for so many years, and our substance of use is what we use to numb the pain for everything. Doesn't matter what it is, bad days, good days, whatever, kind of like you were talking about, you just didn't know how to adult. But once then you do become sober, your 5-year-old self comes back out, and you don't know how to deal with shit. It's like that 5-year-old brain. And when you're talking about crying, that's what you do at 5 years old, right? Like, weird stuff would happen, and you just start crying, good or bad. And I always like to tell people, when they do start to get into recovery, that weird stuff's going to happen. Like, your brain is now functioning, but you might be functioning at a 5-year-old kid. It's okay. You're going to cry a lot. You're going to have joy, all those other things. And for me, with emotions, Like, I put those emotions away for so many years. Then when they came back, I was like, shit, I don't even know how to deal with any of these emotions. Like joy. Oh, I'm happy. I got joy. Well, it's time to go have a drink because that was my normal self. Or if I was angry, it's like, oh, I'm really pissed off. The only thing that would help that is go have a drink or get high. Now it's like, why are you angry? Then I tell myself why I'm angry, and it's like, that is the stupidest thing ever. You're angry over this. But it's just those ways that, um, the addict mind's like, we got to use whatever substance of choice to battle everything in life. Then once you get rid of that, hold on, because you're gonna have to learn a whole new way of life.
And some of that is straight up neurochemical. No matter what you do to help yourself do that, I got self-help books all over the place. Got my journal right here. It doesn't matter because there's something that I guess I don't remember exactly what it is. We learn about it in treatment and stuff, but it's like where certain neurons are numbed or just not as active for years. It's why people sometimes I did not experience this, luckily, they get super anxious when they get sober. And it's because, well, I mean, everyone's brain, I guess, probably experiences it differently, but that's at the neurochemical level. That's something I try to explain to people that are new into it, and they'll tell me they're going to do one thing, and I'm like, some of these things you're going to do and experience, you have no control over. Like, they're happening at the medical level, and get your ass to detox. And they never listen, but neither did I at that point. But, and they're like, no, I don't need that because I've got this. And I'm like, you don't understand what's going to happen to you here in it lasts, they call it pause. And I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but it happens I could feel it at like 4 days, 10 days. Because I sobered up a bunch of times, right? Like a lot of us, I got a stack of 30-day coins. I'd feel like different at 4 days. I'd feel different at 10 days. I'd feel different at 2 weeks. And at 30 days, and these things that would happen to your brain happen at a very long-term level. And I don't think I understood that, and I don't think most people do. When I tell someone who's new, I'm like, go to treatment. Like, well, I'm fine now. And I'm like, it's going to be a while before you're actually fine. And for me, it was about 15 months. Everyone says that first year, and it was actually more like 15 months before the craving stopped, and I felt like I was had all my marbles back.
Yeah, 15 months is, the wave comes and goes, right? I'm sure you've dealt with it. One thing I've realized that wave is going to be there the rest of my life. Good times, bad times. I just got to figure out how to work through shit sober, which is really cool too in that part, because for using for so many years now, I get to deal with it sober. It's totally different than when we're not sober. Just our thought process and the way we choose to do stuff. And in my recovery group, we talk about, anxiety a lot. And in the United States right now, anxiety is up like never before. And if we have someone new to the group, and they say, well, I'm anxious, then we ask them what they're anxious about. And it's just all future tripping on nothing. Like you're making up this own story in your head that it's not even true. But you'll sit there and future trip on it and ruminate on it. And there's usually an underlying something. It's like, well, once you break it down, you get to the root of what's causing them anxiety. It's like, it's the fear of being uncomfortable. Like, what the problem is, you just have to fix it. Well, I'm scared. Well, no shit. That's why it's there. That's why you're getting anxious. That's why you can't sleep at night. And everyone's different. Everyone's recovery is different. But I noticed with a lot of the newer people, like anxiety is just, if you can talk to them about it and try to get them to understand what's going on, and they have to fix some stuff, it's easy to say, well, it's not easy, but it's easy to make the decision you're going to give up substance. Well, that's just the beginning, right? Then there's a lot more that comes along with it.
I
And
made that decision a lot of times before it actually happened.
yeah, a lot of people do. And like you said, that 30-day mark, I don't know what's up with that 30-day mark. That's like it's like the killer. 4 weeks to 6 weeks, people are good, then like, oh, I'm fine, I'm fixed, I'll moderate, I'll do whatever, all those other things that, a lot of self-help books will also teach you how to do an addiction that's I don't agree with. As alcoholics or addicts, like moderation, come on.
Oh yeah, we won't get into that because I have some friends that do the harm reduction thing, and it's not. I'll just say it's not for me.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one, Robbie. I don't know. I've never done anything in moderation. Nothing ever. I scream until I feel sick. Like nothing in moderation.
I like to go back to like ultra running. Like once you've hit that, 100-mile, or now look, there's 200, 250. Now there's a 300. Like, right? We just keep going, like, because that's how we're drove. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Everyone has their own thing, but we always want to go further. And for a lot of us, it's testing ourselves and other things. But with addicts, that's just normal life. That's just how we operated at that time, and that's how we got through day to day. Then make the conscious decision to get rid of it. Then if you don't take the steps in recovery, you're just, white knuckling it. Then sometimes those cravings you'll fight them for a long time until you just finally give up and go right back to where you were before.
Yeah, willpower is finite, man. If you're still getting cravings, then you I don't know what it's like when if people are still doing that and they're not really recovered and they're white knuckling it. Like that'd just be miserable. And eventually I wouldn't be able to do it.
No.
Someone asked me one time, like, are you just like got cravings all the time and like what a terrible way to live? I'm like, no, dude, I don't even give a shit. Like you could put a beer in front of me, it doesn't bother me. I'd probably be a little annoyed, but that'd be it. Like that's
Yeah.
I actually have had someone accidentally knows I'm in recovery and everything, like hand me a beer one time. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, but it did not trigger me. It didn't bother me. I'm recovered. I know they were supposed to say like we're in recovery forever, but I had a sponsor one time. He's like, if you want to, you could say you're recovered. Because he's like, do you suffer from cravings and alcoholism anymore? I'm like, nope. I don't. I had to do a shitload of stuff for a long time to get here, and I still have to be careful. But I don't keep any alcohol in my house and never will, even if I someday have like a spouse or roommate or something. Like there's certain things you just don't do, but I tell people I could, I wouldn't, because why would I do such a thing? But like I wouldn't. I've stayed at cabins and public use cabins and house sat at places with a beer full of fridge and a fridge full of beer, and it doesn't bother me. You get past that. It gets easier.
I'm glad you brought that up, the recovered, because that's like taboo in the recovery circle, right?
I say that and it triggers people. You can't say that.
I've talked with a lot of people, and I was in this one meeting, and the guy's got like 40 years of sobriety, and he goes, it's all right to say if you're recovered. And people are like, there was new people in there, and they're like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And he goes, for me, I don't wake up and crave it every day. It's not even in my thought process anymore. Yeah, I've got 40 years, but it's not who I am anymore. So once I finally got over that hurdle, I'm a recovered alcoholic, whether you like to hear it or not. That's just who I am. I was like, right on.
Maybe we talked to the same guy.
Could
that's
be.
Pretty much what someone told me,
Well, there's different, AA has been the big staple, and there's, a lot of other groups coming around and different ways of doing it. And, labeling yourself as an alcoholic for the rest of your life, for me, I don't think that's fair, because if I made the decision and I don't use every day and all that other stuff. I'm not an alcoholic anymore. I'm working beyond that. And if I had to just put myself in that category as that I'm an alcoholic, well, there's no growth for me in there because I've just labeled myself to identify as an alcoholic for the rest of my life, even though I don't drink or use other substances. That's not me anymore. So why should I have to identify that for the rest of my life? And there's a lot new, programs coming out, and like you were, mentioned, recovered now, and it's going to be interesting where the next couple of years go, because it seems like, we got this change in trends, kind of like with smoking cigarettes now. A lot of people don't smoke cigarettes. Then now that's kind of going over with alcohol and other substances. People are learning to live without them, whether they have a problem or not. It'll just be interesting to me what next few years brings in the community.
It is changing. I wanted to ask you, what terminology do you prefer if or not at all, to label yourself, I guess.
I just say I'm in recovery.
You say you're in recovery. I do that sometimes as well.
Yeah.
I prefer to say, so I'm a sober human or something. That's one way I say it. Or I like to say reformed wild man. Because then it
I like that.
Well, I like to break the seriousness about. I do, there's a fair bit of awkwardness, talking to people that are not sober about being sober or whatever, just like normies. I'm more comfortable. I'm comfortable making them uncomfortable. So, I'll start talking about some real shit. They're like, "Hey, what's the weather like?" And I'm like, "I went through some shit 5 years ago." Cut the small talk, cut the bullshit, dude. But sometimes if I say I'm an alcoholic or I say I'm in recovery, sometimes I don't want to make it serious. I don't want to make it awkward, so I say I'm a reformed wild man.
I like that.
But the other one I like to use, not for me, but for these new trends you're saying, I had a friend, I've heard them say declared sober or non-alcoholic sober, and I like that,
Yeah.
They don't drink, but I know people that don't drink just because they don't drink. But I know people also that don't drink or don't use any substances really on purpose. They make a point not to, and I've heard that's kind of new. And I've heard declared sober and whatever the other one is, not alcoholic sober. And I like both of those,
I've never heard those before. Might have to use one of those.
Well, you can't.
So one last question on sobriety. What have you learned in the 5 years about yourself in this new chapter of being sober?
Well, first of all, that it is just an awesome way to live. That lifestyle that people maybe don't want, or I didn't want. To be the guy that carries a coin in his pocket, to be the guy that posts about it on social media, to be kind of corny about it. I didn't want to do that, and it happened anyways, and I freaking love it. And I think it's helped some other people too, or I know it has. Being that guy, totally changing and becoming this new person and being that guy. And then the other thing, to go back to my occasional ego that I have now, is I feel invincible. When something difficult is upon me or whatever, I'm I can't, I just know I'm going to be able to do it. I'm this sucks. I could do things that suck. I went for a long run last night, got done at 10 o'clock, in bed at 11, woke up at 2:30, drove to freaking Minneapolis, judged CrossFit for 8 hours, drove home. I tell people I'm invincible. It makes people sometimes kind of mad, call me kind of arrogant or something. I'm like, whatever, dude. I feel like I am, because I did all this stuff with hangovers and with alcoholism and with the chaos that my life was back then, and with no money. And I have to start every day and go find my car and still got shit done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so now without that in my life, you know, I just have so much more energy and time, and I just have this feeling of invincibility. My grandpa
Yeah.
passed away like 50 years sober, and he had mentioned that type of stuff too. You know, something difficult would happen in his life, and he would be like, I got this. He's like, I got sober. Won't be that hard.
Yep. Yeah. I feel the same way. It's when in meetings or something, you know, someone will mention about running long distances or something about, you know, that's what he does. And I always tell people this is going to be the hardest journey you've ever taken. You know, just being truthful. I said I would run 50 miles every single day, and it'd be much easier than my recovery and journey, you know, in sobriety. And they look at me like, what? And I'm just like, this is the hardest journey in my life. Like, just being sober. And, you know, people that don't have those addiction issues don't understand that. But yeah, this is, I would run ultras every day.
Then to that last year of using or drinking or whatever is so hard. It was so terrible. I'd run an ultra every day rather than live that. Like, I mean, oh man, it was so bad. You know, it was so hard, so chaotic, so painful. And now anything seems easier. You know, because I made it through that year. God, it was bad. You know. So now life seems like a piece of cake. Even if something's hard, it's still a piece of cake.
Yeah. Those battles get easier and easier.
Mm-hmm.
You learn a lot about yourself. Well, Torv, I want to congratulate you again on 5 years of sobriety. Awesome milestone. Super proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah, man, you too.
Thank you.
I love chatting with other sober folks that are doing the things, you know.
Yeah. Then Justin has to sit here and listen to all my sober talk.
Why do
It's all good.
It's kind of weird. Our podcast is endurance sports, but we've had a lot of sober guests on our podcast.
There's a fair bit of overlap between us to the max type of people and you know, ultra endurance and sober folks. You know, we don't do anything half-assed, man.
Nope. 110% or nothing.
Back when I was like proud of being a wild man, I almost got like all in tattooed on my biceps. I'm glad I didn't. Like,
you just have to change the meaning now to all in.
Yeah, someone told me to do that, and I was like, yeah, I'll do that. That sounds awesome. Tattoo it on my arm. I am all in. Like a car without headlights.
Well, Torv, tell us about what kind of gear you use for split boarding or whatever adventures you do.
So I guess, you know, the split board itself comes to mind. Like I have a Jones split board. I've had a couple different split boards, and I would never use anything after I got this. Actually, after I saw someone else using one, I went down and swiped my credit card and bought one because it was so much nicer. You cut a snowboard in half, you kind of screw up. Like, I'm not an engineer, but when you cut a snowboard in half longitudinally, like, you'll ruin the structural integrity. And so cheap split boards or homemade split boards just aren't as good. So I finally went and bought a Jones, and it's I've had it for years, thousands of miles on it. Like, that's the same. I probably had it close to 10 years.
Wow.
And then I use Spark R&D bindings. Split board bindings, there's a lot of moving parts, and they break a lot. And these ones seem to hold up the best, even in 20, 30, 40 below weather. And they're based out of Bozeman, where I used to live. My roommate worked there back in the day and stuff, so I like to support kind of the smaller, localish company. The other gear I use a lot of is outdoor research. I don't know why. It just seems to be a little bit more affordable and just as good. And so I'm kind of head to toe outdoor research most of the time. other than that, man, what are those water bottle koozies that you can get at Beaver Sports, 40 below or whatever? I use those a lot around my Nalgene bottles because then I don't have to carry the double wall insulated ones. And if I keep them upside down, that's pretty damn good to like 20 below, 30 below even.
Yeah,
But
those double walled ones are super heavy.
they're super heavy. I do carry one because they won't freeze.
Mm-hmm.
And I put like coconut oil or whatever on the threads so that I can still get them open. Because I've had my water bottles freeze shut. You'll never get them apart again. You'll dehydrate to death before you can break that seal. Like, but that's about it for gear wise. The split board's the most important thing, you know. I had that really cool Sitka jacket that's sitting on the White Mountains Trail right now because no one would pick it up for me. It's like $200. Like,
Oh
I
no.
love that thing, man. Some
Maybe I'll be
trapper's
back
gonna
when.
find
Oh,
it
I know
next
exactly
spring.
what it looks like too, and I walk right over it.
Yeah, everyone did. They saw me carrying it and wearing it, and then they walked right past. Like, that jackass snowboarder lost his jacket. It's 20 below zero.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so that's the gear I use. Before we wrap up, I have to pitch something since I don't really have gear to pitch. I'm not associated with any companies or anything. This whole story that I told today, I was kind of reluctant to tell the whole thing because I don't know if you ran into him out there, Justin, but there was a film crew out there.
Yep.
And we are in the kind of beginning phase. We tried to capture what we could last minute. We're making a short film, something digestible to kind of tell this story, you know, use the backdrop of the White Mountains Trail and the race and stuff to talk about, you know, if indeed this is like the world record horizontal distance on a snowboard or like, you know, but also it's just a good story. And there's some other facets of it that I didn't get into because, like I said, we could talk forever. But so me and this group out of Duluth here called Manifested Moose Media are, you know, starting the process of making this, you know, 15 to 20-minute film for, it'll do the films festival circuit. We'll try to put it in the Backcountry Film Fest or whatever, show it locally in Fairbanks and Duluth and maybe Bozeman. So we're always looking for anybody that is interested. I would say the way I put it is like, we're always looking for partners on this project, which like I said, let's cut the bullshit. Like, we're looking for people that want to give us money to make this happen. You know, like if you want to write us a check, like you hit me up. But so we're trying to take this story and work with these guys that are, you know, I've always loved outdoor films and but never had a knack for visual media. I do a fair bit of writing, and I wrote the story and I sent it to them and told them that like with someone who's actually good at videography, the White Mountains is a great place to tell this story. And so that's one project I want to pitch now that we are working on. I mean, it's going, it's happening. We self-funded it and got it off the ground, and we had a videographer out there on race day, and I carried a GoPro that I barely pulled out. I was supposed to, but I got so tired and grumpy sometimes I didn't.
Don't blame you there.
That's more what I have to pitch than any gear, you know.
Well, if somebody
Perfect.
wants to give some money, where can they send, or how do they get a hold of you guys?
Best way to do that is probably just going to be social media, Instagram, because I kind of avoid Facebook a little bit. But my my hashtag or whatever you call it, your symbol is, and this is back in my Wildman days. It's Hurricane Torvinen. So Hurricane Torvinen, Torvinen, because I used to say like, Hurricane Torvinen's blowing into your town, batting down the hatches. I'm here to fuck shit up. Like, so I still like having that thing. So you can look me up on Instagram, send me a message at Hurricane Torvinen, or Manifested Moose Media also has one as well.
Good to know.
We're always looking for any ideas, brainstorming, funding, whatever. You know, we're in that process. Anyone who's done a project like that understands when you're pushing that boulder uphill before you even really have the groundwork laid, you know.
So Justin and I are trying to grow this platform. Who was someone you could suggest for us to have on our podcast?
So a huge part of this story and my story is Nick Jansen. He's like one of my best buds, and we were training partners all those years. And Nick also, like, the dude's never had a beer in his life. He's got a PhD in mechanical engineering, and I was like half pirate wild man, and we were like best friends when we lived in Fairbanks. If you've ever seen, what's that movie about Yosemite Valley Uprising? We got Royal Robbins, the nerd, and the other guy who's always drinking wine on the walls and stuff like that. Like, we had that dynamic going. But Nick is a legitimate endurance champion. He pretty humble, but he just won the ski division of the ITI Invitational 350, and he's won the White Mountains 100 before on foot, like, first place. And he's coming down here in a few weeks to run Grandma's Marathon with me, and he's got stories to tell, man. And he's part of my story. He scraped me off some bar stools, talked me through some tough nights, and yeah, you guys got to get him on the show. He's right in Fairbanks there, Justin. Like, go find him. He's got stories. He's climbed Denali. He's been around.
Sweet.
So, I'll hit him up. He'll do it. I'll tell him to. I'm like, dude, you got to do this.
Well, Torv, thanks for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you guys for having me.
We'll give you some time to shout out, or you already mentioned your Instagram where people can follow your journey, but the floor is yours.
That's all I got, for now. Manifested Moose Media. I work with this CrossFit gym in Duluth called Zenith Athletics. It's kind of a new thing, and they've been helping the owner there, Matt, has been helping me with my fitness for 5 years. I joined right after I got out of treatment, and kept me kind of at this base level of fitness and health. So I got to toss them out there. Zenith Athletics, great group of people here in Duluth, and that's about all I got.
Awesome.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for coming on. Keep rocking sobriety.
Thank you. You too, my man. We'll be in touch, huh? Stay in touch, you guys.
Yeah.